Hey guys, tonight we begin not with a fairy tale or a fable, but with something far more dangerous and complicated. Revenge in the age of Cold War science. Because believe it or not, in 1962, a brilliant physicist wasn't plotting world domination or building bombs. He was engineering the perfect storm to bring his betrayers face to face with the truth. From stolen patents to Korean isolation, from corporate espionage to weather manipulation, this is a story where Shakespeare meets the space age, and forgiveness becomes more complex than any equation. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift away to a forgotten island in the Caribbean, where one man's exile became his laboratory, and a tempest changed everything. The year is 1962. And somewhere in the turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea lies an island that appears on no navigational charts, no tourist brochures, no government registry. It is a place forgotten by the world, or perhaps hidden from it deliberately. The island rises from the ocean like an emerald fortress, its volcanic peaks shrouded in perpetual mist. Its beaches formed of black sand that glitters in the tropical sun like powdered obsidian. Thick jungle vegetation cascades down the mountainside in layers of deep green, punctuated by the scarlet blooms of heliconia and the twisted trunks of ancient ceiba trees. This is a place where nature still holds dominion, where the modern world has not yet pressed its concrete footprint. But appearances deceive. Deep within this seemingly primitive paradise stands a structure that would make the finest minds at MIT or Los Alamos pause in wonder. A compound of sleek, modernist architecture emerges from the jungle like something from a fever dream, all clean lines and geometric precision, constructed of poured concrete, steel, and vast panels of glass that reflect the surrounding canopy. The main building rises 3 stories, its flat roof bristling with antennae, satellite dishes, and meteorological equipment that constantly measures wind speed, barometric pressure, atmospheric electricity. Solar panels, still experimental technology in this era, cover every south-facing surface, drinking in the relentless Caribbean sunshine. Thick cables snake between buildings, connecting generators to laboratories, laboratories to control rooms to transmission towers that pierce the jungle canopy like steel needles. This is the domain of Dr. Prospero Dante, formerly the youngest department chair in the history of Columbia University's physics program, formerly the holder of 17 patents in electromagnetic field manipulation and atmospheric science, formerly a consultant to the Department of Defense on projects so classified their names existed only as numerical designations. That was before the betrayal, before his research was stolen, before his reputation was systematically destroyed by men who wore expensive suits and smiled with teeth like sharks while they stripped him of everything he had built. Now, at 48 years old, Prospero Dante has transformed this forgotten island into something extraordinary and terrible. A living laboratory where he has spent 12 years perfecting technologies that the scientific establishment declared impossible. His hair, once dark as Korean coffee, has gone silver at the temples. His lean frame carries the weariness of a man who has labored with his own hands, building equipment, stringing cable, climbing transmission towers. His eyes, behind thick-framed glasses characteristic of the era, burn with an intensity that speaks of genius balanced precariously on the edge of obsession. He dresses practically khaki work pants, a white short-sleeved shirt already damp with humidity, leather work boots scuffed and salt-stained. On his wrist, a Timex watch keeps precise time, because in his work, timing is everything. He stands now in the central control room, a space that would look at home in NASA's Mission Control Center at Cape Canaveral. Banks of equipment line the walls, oscilloscopes displaying sine waves in glowing green phosphor, reel-to-reel tape machines recording data in endless loops, radio receivers scanning frequencies, and at the center of it all, a control console of his own design. Analog dials, toggle switches, and vacuum tubes create a symphony of technology, all focused on a single purpose: the manipulation of weather itself. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Prospero can see the ocean stretching to the horizon, a sheet of hammered silver under the afternoon sun. Somewhere out there, 40 nautical miles distant and closing, a yacht called the Monarch makes its way through these waters. On board are men he has not seen in 12 years, men whose names still taste like poison on his tongue. Antonio Dante. The name alone causes Prospero's jaw to tighten, his fingers to curl into fists. His brother, his own flesh and blood. The man who had stood beside him in their father's study in Brooklyn 20 years ago, both of them young and full of dreams, promising to always support each other, to build something meaningful together. Antonio had been the business mind to Prospero's scientific genius. While Prospero designed revolutionary technologies, Antonio handled patents, contracts, investors. They were supposed to be partners. They were supposed to be family. But ambition is a cancer that grows slowly, invisibly, until it consumes everything. Antonio had made his own deals, forged his own alliances. He had whispered in the ears of military contractors, of corporate executives, of men with classified clearances and unlimited budgets. And when the moment came, when Prospero's most significant breakthrough, a method of ionizing atmospheric particles to influence weather patterns, was ready for patent, Antonio struck. The research was seized, the patents filed under corporate names. Prospero found himself accused of misappropriating government funds, of falsifying data, of psychological instability. The academic community that had once celebrated him turned away. Colleagues refused his calls. His tenure was revoked. His security clearance disappeared overnight. Within 6 months, Prospero Dante had gone from the pinnacle of scientific achievement to complete professional annihilation. And Antonio? Antonio became senior vice president of Alonso Industries, a defense contractor with Pentagon connections and CIA funding. He lived in a townhouse in Georgetown now, drove a silver Mercedes, attended cocktail parties where senators and generals mixed like old friends. Alonso himself, Victor Alonso, was another name carved into Prospero's memory like a scar. The CEO of Alonso Industries, a man who had built an empire on other people's innovations, who had the morals of a loan shark and the polish of a diplomat. It was Alonso who had orchestrated the entire scheme, who had seen the commercial and military applications of Prospero's weather research, and decided it was worth any price, any betrayal to possess it. And then there was Sebastian Crane, Alonso's right-hand man and chief legal counsel, a shark in a Brooks Brothers suit who had personally delivered the cease and desist orders, the injunctions, the legal documents that had bound Prospero in red tape until he could barely breathe. and Ferdinand Stone, Alonso's golden boy protege, young and brilliant and utterly without conscience, who now ran the research division using Prospero's stolen work. These men are aboard the Monarch. These men who thought they had destroyed Prospero Dante so completely that he would never rise again are sailing directly into his carefully prepared trap. Prospero checks the instrumentation one final time. Barometric pressure dropping. Wind speed increasing from the northeast. The conditions are perfect. His fingers move across the control panel with practiced precision, adjusting frequencies, modulating power outputs. The technology is elegant in its complexity. Radio waves at specific frequencies can ionize particles in the upper atmosphere, creating zones of charge differential. These zones attract moisture, generate convection currents, spawn storm cells that grow and merge and intensify with frightening speed. It is not creation of weather from nothing that would violate thermodynamics, but rather the focused application of energy to accelerate and direct natural processes. A push where the atmosphere is already inclined to move. He pulls a lever, and somewhere in the generator building, turbines spin faster. The hum of electricity fills the air. On the oscilloscope screens, patterns shift and dance. "Father?" The voice pulls him from his concentration. He turns to see Miranda standing in the doorway of the control room, and as always, the sight of her makes his heart ache with a complicated mixture of love and guilt. Miranda Dante is 19 years old, though she has never celebrated a birthday with anyone but her father and Ariel. She is beautiful in an unconventional way, tall and lean like her father, with her mother's dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders, and eyes that shift between green and gray, depending on the light. She wears a simple sundress, pale yellow cotton, that moves in the breeze from the ventilation system, and leather sandals she made herself from salvaged materials. She is intelligent. Prospero has educated her himself, creating a curriculum that would rival any university's. She can quote Whitman and Ferlinghetti, solve differential equations, identify every species of flora and fauna on the island. She speaks fluent English and Spanish, passable French, functional Russian from the scientific journals her father sometimes receives through covert channels. But she has never been to a city, never ridden in a car through traffic, never stood in a crowded subway, or ordered food in a restaurant, or watched a movie in a theater. Never met another woman her age, never attended a dance, never been kissed by a boy in the back seat at a drive-in. Her entire world is this island, this compound, these machines, and her father's obsessive pursuit of justice. "Miranda," Prospero says, his voice softening, "you should be resting. The storm will be here soon, and it will be loud." "I can't rest," she replies, moving further into the room. "Father, I've been watching the radar display. There's a vessel out there. You're bringing the storm directly toward it." Prospero's expression hardens. He turns back to his instruments, adjusting a dial with deliberate precision. "Yes," he says simply, "I am. But the people on board, they could die. Father, you've taught me about ethics, about the value of human life. How can you— Those are not people, Miranda." His voice cuts like surgical steel. "Those are the men who destroyed us. The men who took everything we had and left us with nothing. The men who made it so your mother—" He stops abruptly, his jaw clenching. Even after all these years, he cannot speak easily of what happened to Catherine. Miranda's mother had been a concert violinist, brilliant and gentle, who had stood by Prospero through the accusations and the trials. But the stress, the public humiliation, the threats, they had broken something in her delicate constitution. 3 months after they fled to this island, Catherine Dante had walked into the ocean one morning and never returned. Miranda was 7 years old. She barely remembers her mother's face now, though she remembers the sound of her violin, the way music would drift through their Brooklyn apartment on Sunday mornings. "I know what they did," Miranda says quietly, moving to stand beside her father. She places a hand on his arm. "You've told me the story 1,000 times, but vengeance isn't the same as justice. And murder, I'm not going to murder them," Prospero interrupts. "I'm simply going to bring them here, to show them what I've built with my own hands, without their funding, without their laboratories, without their approval, to prove that they were wrong about me, that I was right all along. And then," he pauses, his eyes distant, "and then I will decide what justice looks like." Before Miranda can respond, another figure enters the control room, moving with the liquid grace of someone completely comfortable in their own skin. This is Ariel Reyes, 24 years old, olive-skinned and dark-eyed, with the compact, muscular build of someone who spends their days climbing, swimming, running through jungle terrain. Ariel wears faded blue jeans rolled to mid-calf, a white T-shirt with the sleeves torn off, and no shoes never shoes. Their black hair is cut short, practical for the heat. Around their neck hangs a small silver compass on a leather cord, a gift from Prospero years ago. Ariel is the only other person on this island, and their presence here is its own complicated story. 8 years ago, Ariel's fishing boat, a small vessel from Puerto Rico, had suffered engine failure and drifted for days before washing up on this island's shore. Ariel had been 17, running from a bad situation in San Juan, working on fishing boats for cash, sleeping in cheap hostels, staying invisible. Prospero had found them unconscious on the beach, dehydrated and sunburned, nearly to death. He should have sent them away, should have called for medical evacuation, returned them to civilization. But Ariel had seen the compound, had seen the technology, and Prospero had found himself unwilling to let this sharp-minded young person leave. So he had made an offer: stay, work, learn, and in exchange, gain knowledge that no university could provide. Ariel had accepted. Over the years, they had become Prospero's assistant, his technician, his most trusted ally. Ariel maintained the equipment, ran experiments, climbed the transmission towers when adjustments were needed, and executed Prospero's instructions with precision and loyalty. But there was always an understanding between them, an unspoken contract. Ariel worked for Prospero, but they were not free. The island was a prison as much as a sanctuary, and Prospero held the key. Someday Prospero had promised when the work was complete, Ariel would be released, would receive letters of recommendation, payment for services rendered, passage to anywhere in the world they wished to go. But not yet. Not until this final task was complete. "Boss," Ariel says, their voice carrying a slight Puerto Rican accent, "the ionization array is at full power. Waned patterns are forming exactly as you calculated. The storm cell is now Category 1 strength and intensifying. The Monarch is 12 miles from the center track." Prospero nods with satisfaction. "Excellent. What's their current heading?" "They're trying to change course, but the wind is pushing them exactly where we want them. At current speed, they'll hit the outer bands in 20 minutes. The main storm will reach them in 90 minutes. And our defenses? All buildings are secured. Emergency generators are online. The lightning rod array is grounded and tested. We can ride this out without problems. Ariel pauses, glancing at Miranda, then back to Prospero. You're sure about this? Once the storm reaches full intensity, there's no calling it back. It becomes self-sustaining, I'm certain, Prospero says. He removes his glasses, cleaning them on his shirt, a nervous habit from his teaching days. I've been certain for 12 years. Every calculation, every experiment, every test has led to this moment. They think I'm dead or broken or hiding in shame. They have no idea that I've been here, building, planning, waiting for exactly the right moment. Well, gentlemen, he addresses the distant yacht as if they could hear him. Welcome to your reckoning. He reaches for the master control, the large rotary switch protected by a clear safety cover. He flips the cover open with a decisive click. Father, please. Miranda tries once more, but Prospero has already turned the switch. The hum of machinery deepens, becomes a vibration felt through the floor, through the bones. Outside, the sky begins to darken with unnatural speed. Clouds boil up from the horizon like smoke from an invisible fire, towering cumulus formations that climb miles into the atmosphere. The wind shifts, increasing from a tropical breeze to a sustained howl. Palm trees bend and thrash. The ocean surface transforms from gentle swells to angry chop, white caps appearing like teeth. And 40 miles distant, the men aboard the Monarch look up at the sky and feel the first cold drops of rain, and wonder how a storm could appear so suddenly from such a clear afternoon. Prospero watches his instruments and allows himself a thin smile. The tempest has begun. The Monarch is a vessel that speaks of wealth and power in every polished teak plank and chrome fitting. 65 feet of luxury yacht, custom-built in a Newport shipyard for a man who believes that the quality of one's transportation reflects the quality of one's character. The main salon features leather seating in cognac brown, a fully stocked bar with crystal decanters and wood paneling in rich mahogany. The galley boasts every modern convenience, a refrigerator stocked with champagne and caviar, a range where the hired cook prepares meals that would rival any Manhattan restaurant. On the deck, canvas awnings provide shade, and deck chairs invite passengers to recline with martinis and paperback novels while the Caribbean sun works its magic. Or at least that was the scene 30 minutes ago. Now the Monarch pitches violently in seas that have transformed from postcard perfect to nightmare dark with terrifying speed. Waves the size of buildings rise from the ocean, their faces steep and angry, their crests torn into horizontal spray by whims that scream like jet engines. Rain falls not in drops but in solid sheets, reducing visibility to mere feet. The sky has become a bruised purple-black, and lightning splits the darkness with electric white fury, the thunder following so closely that it feels like the air itself is being torn apart. In the main salon, which now tilts at sickening angles with each wave, 5 men cling to whatever fixed objects they can find. The crystal decanters have long since shattered, their contents mixing with seawater that sloshes across the floor. Charts and papers float in the deluge. The lights flicker powered by the yacht's generator, casting everything in intermittent illumination that makes the scene even more nightmarish. Victor Alonso, 62 years old and accustomed to controlling every aspect of his environment, finds himself completely powerless against the fury of nature. He is a large man, not fat but solid, with iron-gray hair cut in the style favored by corporate executives, short, neat, conservative. He wears white slacks now soaked through, a navy blue polo shirt with the Alonso Industries logo embroidered on the breast, and deck shoes that provide no traction on the lurching floor. His face, usually set in an expression of confident authority, has gone pale. Water streams down his features, and his eyes, pale blue and calculating, dart around the cabin with something approaching panic. How the hell did this happen? He shouts over the roar of wind and water. The weather report said clear skies. The radio said nothing about a storm system. Beside him, gripping the edge of the built-in sofa, is Sebastian Crane. At 48, Sebastian is everything a top-tier corporate attorney should be: impeccably dressed even in crisis, in khaki slacks and a short-sleeved button-down that was crisp and pressed this morning, but now clings to his lean frame. His hair, dark and slicked back with pomade, remains somehow in place despite the chaos. Wire-rimmed glasses sit on a sharp nose, and his thin lips press into a line of barely controlled fear disguised as annoyance. Sebastian has spent his career insulating himself from consequences, finding legal loopholes, crafting contracts that protect the powerful and exploit the weak. But no contract can negotiate with a hurricane. Weather patterns can shift, Sebastian says, his voice tight. This is the Caribbean. Storms develop. Not like this, shouts Antonio Dante from his position wedged between the bar and the wall. Not in minutes. This is impossible. Antonio is 46, 2 years younger than the brother he betrayed, but he looks older. Success has not been kind to him. His face carries the puffiness of too many expense account dinners, too many drinks at the country club, too much rich food consumed to fill the hollow place where his conscience used to be. He wears Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, a parody of casual wealth, and his thinning hair is plastered to his skull. His hands, soft and manicured, shake as he grips the brass rail of the bar. There is something in Antonio's eyes beyond fear of the storm. There is a deeper terror, a superstitious dread, because he knows these waters. He knows what lies in this region, though he has never spoken of it aloud, not in 12 years. He knows there is an island out here, somewhere, and he knows who might be on that island. But that's impossible, his rational mind insists. Prospero is gone. Prospero is broken. Prospero could never. Another massive wave slams into the Monarch, and the entire vessel tilts at a 45-degree angle. Men slide across the floor, grabbing desperately for handholds. Something crashes in the galley, more dishes, more equipment tearing free from its moorings. The yacht seems to hang suspended at that terrible angle for an impossibly long moment, and every man aboard thinks the same thought. We're going to capsize, we're going to die. This is how it ends. Then the yacht rolls back, crashing down into the trough between waves, and the impact is bone-jarring, teeth-rattling. "We need to get to the bridge," Victor Alonso shouts. "Find out what the captain is doing. The captain is trying to keep us alive." This comes from the youngest man present, who has somehow maintained his footing near the salon door. Ferdinand Stone is 28 years old and represents everything the early 1960s values in a young professional educated at Yale, sharp-minded, ambitious, handsome in the clean-cut way that appears in advertisements for whiskey and luxury cars. His dark hair, usually styled in the Kennedy-esque fashion popular among ambitious young men, is now wild and dripping. He wears white jeans and a navy polo, and despite the terror of the situation, there is something almost excited in his expression. Ferdinand has lived his entire privileged life without facing real danger, real consequence. Some part of him, some immature, undeveloped part, finds this thrilling. Thrilling for you, perhaps, Sebastian Crane snaps at Ferdinand. Some of us have families waiting for us. Some of us have responsibilities beyond playing with stolen research in a laboratory. Ferdinand's jaw tightens. I didn't steal anything. That research was legally acquired through proper corporate channels. Enough. Victor Alonso's voice cuts through the argument with the authority of a man accustomed to obedience. This is not the time for your petty squabbles. We need to focus on survival. But even as he speaks, Victor's mind is racing through calculations. The yacht cost him $300,000. The business dealings he was sailing to finalize in Kingston represent a $12 million defense contract. In his briefcase, currently sliding back and forth across the cabin floor, are documents that could expand Alonso Industries' government connections into new territories, weather modification programs, atmospheric research, the very technologies that stupid, idealistic Prospero Dante had been too naive to properly monetize. Victor had seen the potential immediately. Prospero's research could be worth billions if applied correctly. Military applications alone imagined being able to deny enemy forces clear weather for air operations, or flooding their supply routes, or protecting friendly troop movements under cover of controlled fog banks. And Prospero had wanted to use it for agriculture, for helping farmers predict and manage rainfall. The fool had actually believed his work should benefit humanity rather than generate profit. Well, Victor had corrected that short-sightedness. With Antonio's help, weak, ambitious Antonio, who could be manipulated with promises of money and position, he had acquired everything. The patents, the research notes, the experimental data. Prospero himself had been discredited so thoroughly that he disappeared completely. Problem solved. Business concluded. Profit secured. Except now Victor Alonso finds himself at the mercy of the very forces his stolen technology was designed to control, and the irony is not lost on him. The door to the salon crashes open, and Captain James Riley staggers in, gripping the doorframe. He is a weathered man of 55, 30 years at sea written in the deep lines of his face, and the permanent squint from decades of scanning horizons. He wears a captain's hat, now knocked askew, a rain slicker that does nothing to keep out this deluge, and an expression of grim determination fighting against obvious fear. "Gentlemen," he says, his voice hoarse from shouting orders to his two-man crew, "we have a situation." "A situation?" Antonio laughs, the sound high-pitched and hysterical. "We're in a goddamn hurricane and you call it a situation?" "The engine is flooded," Captain Riley continues, ignoring the outburst. "We've lost power. We're dead in the water, and the storm is pushing us northwest. According to my charts, there's nothing in that direction but open ocean for 200 miles. Then we ride it out," Victor says, trying to inject confidence into his voice. "This yacht is built to handle rough seas. We have life preservers, emergency supplies. With respect, Mr. Alonso, this vessel was built for coastal cruising, not open ocean storms. The hull is taking a beating. I've got water coming in through the forward hatch seals. My crew is trying to pump it out manually, but we're fighting a losing battle. A particularly violent wave strikes, and the impact sounds like a car crash. Men are thrown sideways. Antonio loses his grip and slides across the floor, colliding with the far wall with a grunt of pain. The lights flicker, dim, and for a heart-stopping moment, everything goes dark. Then the emergency lights kick in, bathing everything in a sickly yellow glow. What do we do? Ferdinand asks, and for the first time, his youthful confidence is cracked, revealing the scared young man beneath. Captain Riley meets his eyes. We pray, and we prepare to abandon ship if necessary. Abandon ship? Sebastian's voice rises. Into that? He gestures at the windows, where waves the size of buildings roll past in endless procession, their faces nearly vertical walls of water. If the hull breaches, staying aboard means going down with the vessel, the captain says flatly. I'd rather take my chances in a life raft. This is insane, Victor mutters. He pushes himself upright, using the furniture for support as the yacht pitches and rolls. We were supposed to be having drinks in Kingston tonight. This was supposed to be a celebration cruise. The Reynolds contract, the expansion into atmospheric research, we were going to toast our success. Antonio laughs again, that same unhinged sound. Success. We were going to toast our success. Just like we did 12 years ago, remember, Victor? Remember when we toasted acquiring Prospero's research? When we celebrated destroying him? Shut up, Antonio, Sebastian says sharply. No, I won't shut up. Antonio's voice is nearly a scream now. Don't you see? Don't any of you see? This isn't natural. Storms don't form like this. And we're in these waters, his waters, where who? Ferdinand asks, confused. Your brother was a crackpot who couldn't handle the competitive realities of modern science, Victor says coldly, though something flickers in his eyes, something that might be doubt. He's probably dead by now, drunk in some Caribbean gutter, or back in the States teaching at some second-rate college if anyone would hire him. You don't believe that, Antonio says, and his voice has dropped to something quieter, more terrible. You don't believe that any more than I do. Because if he's alive, if he found a way to perfect his research, if he's out here somewhere, thunder crashes so loudly that it feels like the hand of God slamming down on the ocean. Lightning illuminates the cabin through the windows, and in that flash of electric white light, every man sees the same thing on the horizon. Land, an island, rising from the chaos of the storm, its volcanic peak dark against the purple-black sky, its beaches barely visible through the rain and spray. And on that island, lights, artificial lights, the unmistakable signature of human habitation, of technology, of civilization where none should exist. There, Captain Riley shouts. That's our chance. If I can get us close enough to beach the vessel, but he doesn't finish the sentence. A rogue wave, larger than any that came before, rises out of the darkness like a moving mountain. It towers above the monarch, blocking out what little light remains. For one frozen instant, every man aboard sees his death approaching in the form of thousands of tons of water suspended impossibly above them. Then it falls. The wave hits the monarch with the force of a collapsing building. The impact is beyond violence. It is annihilation. The yacht, all 65 feet and 30 tons of it, is picked up like a child's toy and hurled sideways. The mast snaps with a sound like a gunshot. Windows explode inward, glass and seawater mixing into a deadly spray. Men tumble through the air, their screams lost in the roar of destruction. Victor Alonso feels his body lifted, thrown, slammed against something hard. Pain explodes in his ribs. Water fills his mouth, his nose, his lungs. He cannot tell which way is up. The world has become a churning nightmare of water and darkness and the terrible certainty of death. Antonio is underwater, inside what used to be the salon, but is now just a flooded box tumbling through chaos. His lungs burn, his vision fills with red spots. This is it, he thinks with strange clarity. This is payment for what I did. Prospero has killed me from beyond the grave. Sebastian Crane's glasses are torn from his face, and without them he is nearly blind. He grabs for something, anything, and his hand closes on fabric, someone's shirt. He holds on with the desperation of a drowning man, because that is exactly what he is. Ferdinand Stone, young and strong and athletic, manages to grab a breath before the water closes over him. He kicks, fights, struggles toward what he hopes is the surface. His shoulder strikes something, debris, furniture, a piece of hull, and the pain is electric, but he keeps fighting. He has always been a fighter, always been a winner. He will not die here. He refuses to die here. Captain Riley, most experienced of them all in the ways of the sea, knows that fighting is useless. He makes himself go limp, lets the water take him, trusts that buoyancy and luck might bring him to air. His crew, good men, loyal men, are somewhere in this chaos. He prays they have the sense to do the same. The monarch breaks apart. The hull, stressed beyond its limits, simply comes apart at the seams. Sections of deck tear away. The cabin structure collapses. What was once a symbol of wealth and power becomes debris, becomes wreckage, becomes evidence of man's fragility against nature's fury. And the storm drives it all toward the island. Men surface, gasping, choking, grabbing for floating debris. A piece of decking, a cushion from the salon, a section of railing. Anything that floats becomes precious as gold. The waves push them forward relentlessly, dragging them through the maelstrom toward the black sand beach that appears and disappears in the rain. Victor surfaces, coughing seawater, his vision blurred. He sees Antonio 20 feet away, clinging to what looks like a cabinet door. He sees Sebastian further still, his face pale as death, barely keeping his head above water. Where is Ferdinand? Where is the captain? A wave lifts Victor high, and at its crest he glimpses the island clearly. The beach is close, now terrifyingly close. He can see the volcanic sand, the palm trees bending nearly horizontal in the wind, and beyond them, impossible and undeniable, the geometric shapes of modern buildings. The lights he saw from the yacht are still there, still burning, steady and bright despite the storm. Someone lives there, someone with electricity, with structures that can withstand this tempest. Someone who might save them, or the wave crashes down and Victor is underwater, again, tumbling, drowning. His hand strikes sand. He's in the shallows. He tries to stand, but another wave knocks him down, drives him forward, scrapes him across the rough bottom. He tastes blood, salt, terror. Then hands grab him. Strong hands pulling him upward, dragging him above the waterline. He collapses on the beach, vomiting seawater, gasping like a landed fish. Through blurred vision he sees a figure standing over him, young, athletic, dark-haired. The person moves with purpose, wading back into the surf. Ariel Reyes works with the efficiency of someone who is trained for exactly this scenario. Prospero's orders were explicit. Bring them to shore alive. All of them. It does the plan no good if they drown. So Ariel pulls them from the water, one by one. Antonio next, then Sebastian, who has lost his glasses and looks around with a bewildered expression of the nearly blind. Ferdinand washes up on his own, crawling onto the beach under his own power, collapsing face down in the black sand. Captain Riley and his 2 crew members make it to shore further down the beach, their professional seamanship and physical conditioning saving them where wealth and privilege could not save the others. The storm continues to rage, but here on the beach, sheltered by the curve of the bay and the bulk of the volcanic peak, the worst of the wind passes overhead. Rain still falls in sheets, but the deadly waves do not reach this far. The men lie scattered across the black sand like survivors of a battlefield, which in a sense they are. Ariel stands among them, rain streaming down their face, and allows themselves a moment of doubt. These are human beings, flawed, yes, guilty of crimes against Prospero, certainly, but still human, still capable of suffering, of fear, of death. Is what Prospero plans to do to them justice, or is it simply revenge dressed in more sophisticated clothing? But these thoughts are dangerous, and Ariel pushes them away. There is work to do. Can you walk? Ariel asks Victor, who has managed to sit up. Victor stares at this person who pulled him from death. Who are you? Someone who's giving you a chance to survive? Ariel replies. There's shelter up the beach. But we need to move now, before hypothermia sets in. Can you walk? Victor nods, though he's not certain it's true. With Ariel's help, he stands, his legs shaking. Around him, the other men are being helped to their feet, a ragged collection of survivors who minutes ago were wealthy, powerful men in command of their fates. Now they are simply castaways on an uncharted island, dependent on the mercy of strangers. And somewhere in the compound above the beach, Dr. Prospero Dante watches it all on closed-circuit television monitors and smiles. The compound looks like something from a science fiction film in the harsh illumination of emergency floodlights. As Ariel leads the bedraggled survivors up a path carved into the volcanic rock, the men see architecture that shouldn't exist on an uncharted island. Transmission towers rise into the storm-darkened sky, their red warning lights blinking in steady rhythm. Generator buildings hum with contained power. This is not a castaway's desperate shelter. This is a fully functioning research facility. What is this place? Ferdinand asks, his voice hoarse from swallowed seawater. He walks with one arm held close to his body, the shoulder injured during his underwater struggle, clearly causing him pain. Ariel doesn't answer, just keeps moving up the path. The survivors follow because there is no alternative. Behind them, the storm continues its assault on the empty ocean. Ahead lies shelter, warmth, and answers to questions they haven't fully formed yet. They enter through a steel door that slides open with a pneumatic hiss automated, controlled from somewhere inside. The interior is warmly lit, dry, blessedly calm after the chaos of the storm. They find themselves in a reception area that might belong to any modern research facility. Linoleum floors in pale green, walls painted institutional white, fluorescent lights humming overhead. A bulletin board displays what look like weather charts and atmospheric data readings. Against one wall stands a row of metal lockers. The air smells of ozone and electrical equipment, with an undertone of coffee from somewhere deeper in the building. Wait here, Ariel instructs. There are towels in the lockers, dry clothes. The bathroom is through that door if anyone needs it. Do not wander. This facility has areas that are dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. Who's in charge here? Victor Alonso demands, some of his natural authority returning now that he's on solid ground. I want to speak to whoever runs this operation. We need to contact the mainland, arrange for rescue. You need to be patient, Ariel says, and there is steel in that young voice. You're alive because you were pulled from the ocean. Be grateful for that. The person who runs this facility will speak with you when they're ready. With that, Ariel turns and disappears through an interior door, which locks behind them with an audible click. The survivors look at each other. Sebastian, without his glasses, squints uselessly at his surroundings. Antonio's face has gone paler than hypothermia alone would explain. His hands shake as he opens one of the lockers and pulls out a gray towel. This is wrong, Antonio mutters. This is all wrong. What are you babbling about? Victor snaps. He strips off his soaked polo shirt, revealing a body going soft in late middle age, and begins drying himself roughly. These coordinates, Antonio says, this location. Don't you understand where we are? An uncharted island with an apparently well-funded research station, Ferdinand says. He's exploring the lockers, finding folded clothing in various sizes, work pants, white cotton shirts, canvas sneakers. Everything practical and generic. Someone's operating a facility out here off the books. Probably government, possibly military. We stumbled into something classified. No, Antonio says, and his voice carries such certainty that the others stop and look at him. Not government, not military. This is his. His who? Sebastian asks, frustrated by his blindness. Antonio laughs, but there's no humor in it. You really haven't figured it out? The storm that appeared from nowhere? The technology required to maintain a facility like this in complete isolation? We're 40 miles from where I helped Prospero establish his initial research station 12 years ago. 40 miles from where we abandoned him. The name hangs in the air like a pronouncement of doom. Victor's face hardens. That's impossible. Prospero Dante is finished. Broken. He had no resources, no funding, no access to equipment. And yet here we are, Antonio says, standing in a research facility that nobody knows about, after being driven here by a storm that defied every law of meteorology. You tell me what's impossible. A figure stands silhouetted in the doorway, backlit so that features are difficult to discern. But the shape is familiar, tall, lean, with a particular way of standing that speaks of intellectual confidence rather than physical power. The figure steps forward into the light. Dr. Prospero? Dante looks like a man who has been forged in isolation into something harder than he was. The silver hair at his temples catches the fluorescent light. His face has been weathered by sun and salt air, but the eyes behind those thick-framed glasses are sharp, focused, burning with an intensity that makes each man feel suddenly exposed. He wears simple clothing, khaki work pants, a white short-sleeved shirt, work boots, but he carries himself like a king surveying his domain. For a long moment, no one speaks. The survivors stare at the ghost of a man they helped destroy, and Prospero stares back at the architects of his ruin. Finally, Victor finds his voice. You're supposed to be dead. Prospero smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. No, Victor. I was supposed to be forgotten. There's a difference. Dead men don't build. Dead men don't plan. Dead men don't perfect the very technology you stole from me and then couldn't make work. He pauses, letting that sink in. How are the weather modification contracts going, by the way? I heard Alonso Industries has been struggling with implementation. The Pentagon must be disappointed in their investment. You created that storm, Ferdinand says, and there's something like awe in his voice. You actually did it. The equations in your research, we could never get them to scale properly. But you, I did what I was always capable of doing, Prospero says. What I would have done 12 years ago if I hadn't been betrayed by my own brother and robbed by corporate vultures. Antonio cannot meet Prospero's eyes. He stares at the floor, his whole body trembling. Why? Sebastian asks. Why bring us here? If you wanted revenge, you could have just let us drown. Prospero's smile widens slightly. Because death would be too simple, too quick. No, gentlemen, I have something much more interesting planned for you. Prospero gestures toward the interior corridor. Come, you're cold, wet, and exhausted. I'm not a savage, despite what you may think. There are rooms prepared, hot showers, food. You'll need your strength for what comes next. We're not going anywhere with you, Victor says, attempting to reclaim authority. We demand that you contact the Coast Guard immediately. We demand. You demand? Prospero's voice cuts like a scalpel. You stand in my facility, on my island, alive only because I chose to pull you from the water, and you make demands? Victor, you always did have an inflated sense of your own importance. But here, in this place, you have no power, no lawyers, no contracts, no corporate structure to hide behind. Here there is only me, my work, and the consequences you've spent 12 years avoiding. He turns and walks into the corridor. After a moment's hesitation, the survivors follow. What choice do they have? Outside is a storm that would kill them in minutes. Behind them are locked doors. The only path leads forward into Prospero's carefully constructed world. They walk through corridors that speak of serious scientific endeavor. Equipment rooms filled with oscilloscopes, radio transceivers, and devices whose purposes are unclear. A machine shop with lathes and milling equipment. A library with walls of technical journals and reference books. Everything is clean, organized, maintained with obvious care. This is not the lair of a madman. This is a functioning research laboratory that happens to exist outside the boundaries of civilization. Ferdinand, despite his fear and pain, cannot help but be fascinated. His eyes track over the equipment, recognizing some pieces, puzzling over others. The ionization array, he murmurs. You solved the power distribution problem. We could never get the signal strong enough without burning out the transmission equipment. Because you were using my preliminary calculations, Prospero says without turning around. The research you stole was incomplete. I never committed my final breakthroughs to paper. Some instinct warned me to keep my most important work inside my own head. Lucky for me. Unfortunate for your Pentagon contracts. They reach a common area, something between a cafeteria and a lounge. There's a long table with bench seating, a kitchenette with a coffee percolator already brewing, windows looking out onto the storm-lashed jungle. And sitting at the table, reading a book by lamplight, is Miranda. She looks up as they enter, and her green-gray eyes widen slightly. She's changed into dry clothes, a simple white blouse and dark slacks, and her long dark hair is pulled back in a practical ponytail. She stands, and there's something uncertain in her posture, as if she's not quite sure how to react to the presence of strangers. Gentlemen, Prospero says, allow me to introduce my daughter, Miranda. She was 7 years old when you destroyed our lives. She barely remembers living in a city, attending school, having friends. Her entire adolescence has been spent on this island because you made it impossible for us to exist anywhere else. The men stare at her. There's something unsettling about this beautiful young woman who exists in complete isolation, who watches them with curiosity but also wariness, like a zoologist observing specimens. "Father," Miranda says quietly, "are these the men?" "These are indeed the men," Prospero confirms. "Victor Alonso, who orchestrated the theft of my research. Sebastian Crane, who buried me in legal proceedings until I had nothing left. Ferdinand Stone, who now runs a research division built entirely on my stolen work. And of course, Antonio, my brother, who sold his own flesh and blood for a vice presidency and a townhouse in Georgetown." Antonio flinches at each word as if physically struck. "They look so ordinary," Miranda observes, and there's something devastating in her honest assessment. "I expected monsters. I expected men who looked like villains. But they just look like people. Tired, scared people. Monsters rarely look the part," Prospero says. "They wear suits and ties. They smile at cocktail parties. They destroy lives with paperwork and legalities, never getting blood on their hands." "I want to speak with my brother," Antonio says suddenly. "Alone. Please, Prospero." "You owe me that much? I owe you?" Prospero's eyebrows rise. "I owe you nothing, Antonio. Less than nothing." "Then grant it as a mercy," Antonio pleads. 5 minutes. "That's all I ask." Prospero studies his brother for a long moment. Then he nods curtly. 5 minutes. The rest of you, come with me. Miranda will show you to your quarters." He leads Victor, Sebastian, and Ferdinand out through another door. Miranda remains, watching Antonio with careful attention. The room falls silent except for the sound of rain against the windows and the steady percolation of coffee. Antonio sinks onto one of the benches, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "God, Prospero, I'm so sorry. I'm not my father," Miranda says gently. "He stepped out. But I'm happy to listen if you need to talk." Antonio looks up at her, this girl who should have had a normal life, who should have gone to college and dated boys and argued with her parents about curfews. Instead, she's grown up in exile, educated in isolation, her entire world shaped by his betrayal. "I didn't know it would go so far," he says. "I swear I didn't. Victor approached me, said there were investors interested in Prospero's work, said we could all benefit. I thought it would just be a business arrangement. Share the patents, split the profits. I didn't know they were going to take everything. I didn't know they'd destroy him. But when you found out," Miranda says, "you didn't stop it. You didn't speak up. You took your position at Alonso Industries, and you let my father burn." Antonio has no answer to that, because she's right. When he realized the full scope of Victor's plan, he said nothing. He watched his brother's reputation crumble, watched him lose tenure, lose funding, lose credibility. And he cashed his paychecks and told himself it was just business. "Your mother," Antonio says, "Catherine, is she dead?" Miranda says flatly. 8 years ago. She walked into the ocean one morning and never came back. I was 11. So yes, Antonio, Uncle Antonio, though I've never been allowed to call you, that your choices have consequences that ripple far beyond boardrooms and patent offices. The door opens and Prospero returns alone. He looks at his brother with an expression impossible to read: anger, yes, but also something that might be pain, might be the ghost of old affection, not quite extinguished. "Your 5 minutes are up," he says. "Miranda, show him to his quarters. All of them are secured, locked from the outside. Tomorrow, when the storm passes, we'll discuss what comes next." "And what does come next?" Antonio asks. Prospero's smile is cold. Justice, brother. Finally, after 12 years, justice. The quarters prepared for the survivors are not cells, but they might as well be. Each room is small, functional, containing a narrow bed with military-style blankets, a metal desk with a single chair, a small bathroom with a sink and toilet. The walls are painted institutional beige. A single window looks out onto the jungle, but it's fitted with bars ostensibly for safety. But the message is clear. There is one light fixture in the ceiling, controlled from outside the room. The door locks with a heavy deadbolt that can only be operated from the corridor. Miranda leads each man to his assigned room with polite efficiency, as if she's a hotel clerk rather than a jailer. She provides each with basic toiletries, soap, toothbrush, razor, and informs them that breakfast will be brought at 700 hours. Her manner is courteous but distant, and the men can't quite reconcile this poised young woman with the child whose life they inadvertently destroyed. Victor Alonso is the last to be shown to his room. As Miranda unlocks the door, he catches her arm. "Miss Dante, you seem like a reasonable person. Surely you can see that keeping us here against our will is kidnapping. Whatever your father suffered, and I'm not disputing that mistakes were made, this isn't the way to resolve it." Miranda looks at his hand on her arm until he releases it. "My father once believed in legal channels, Mr. Alonso. He believed in the system, in justice through proper procedures. You and your associates taught him that belief was naive. YO used that system as a weapon against him. Now he's simply operating outside a structure that failed him." "Two wrongs don't make a right," Victor says, falling back on platitudes because he has no better argument. "Perhaps not," Miranda replies. "But sometimes the only way to balance a scale is to add weight to the lighter side. Sleep well, Mr. Alonso. You're going to need your strength." She closes the door, and the deadbolt slides home with finality. Alone in his cell-no room, he corrects himself. Though the distinction feels meaningless, Victor sits on the edge of the bed and tries to think. He's built a career on strategic thinking, on finding angles, on turning disadvantages into opportunities. There must be a way out of this. Prospero wants something revenge, yes, but also validation, recognition. Men like Prospero, idealistic men who believe their work matters, they can be manipulated. They want to explain, to justify, to prove they were right all along. That need can be exploited. Victor's mind starts working through scenarios, strategies, approaches. By morning, he'll have a plan. He always has a plan. In another room, Sebastian Crane lies on his bed, staring at the ceiling through vision still blurred from the loss of his glasses. He's spent his career crafting legal defenses, finding precedents, building arguments, but all his expertise is useless here. There's no judge to appeal to, no jurisdiction to claim, no legal framework to hide behind. For the first time in his professional life, Sebastian faces consequences that cannot be negotiated away with the right paperwork. He thinks about his wife, Margaret, waiting for him in their Alexandria home. She'll be worried when he doesn't call. The Coast Guard will be notified eventually. Search and rescue operations will be launched. The storm will be blamed and they'll be presumed dead. Unless Prospero plans to let them go. Does he? Or is this island destined to be their tomb? Sebastian closes his eyes and tries to pray, though he hasn't been to church in 15 years. Ferdinand Stone stands at his barred window, watching lightning illuminate the jungle canopy. His shoulder throbs where he injured it, but the pain is almost welcome. It's real, immediate, distracting from the larger terror of his situation. He's young enough that death has always seemed like an abstract concept, something that happens to other people, older people. Now it feels very close, very possible. But there's something else mixed with his fear, a strange excitement. Prospero's facility is extraordinary. The technology that created that storm is beyond anything Ferdinand has seen in 2 years of trying to operationalize the stolen research. If he could just understand how Prospero solved the scaling problems, how he achieved that level of precise atmospheric control. He stops himself. Is he really thinking about research while being held prisoner? Is he so consumed by scientific curiosity that he's losing sight of the danger he's in? Yes, he realizes. Yes, he is. Because that's who Ferdinand is, ambitious, curious, unable to see people as anything more than obstacles or opportunities in his pursuit of knowledge and advancement. It's what made him successful so young. It's also what made him capable of building a career on another man's stolen work without feeling guilt. In the last room, Antonio Dante sits on the floor with his back against the wall, knees drawn up to his chest, looking like a man who has finally run out of places to hide. For 12 years he's avoided thinking about Prospero, pushed away memories of their childhood, their partnership, the moment of betrayal. He's told himself comfortable lies, that Prospero would have been fine, that he was too idealistic for the real world anyway, that business requires difficult decisions. But those lies have dissolved in the reality of this island, this facility, this confrontation he can no longer avoid. His brother survived. More than survived, he's thrived in isolation, accomplished alone what entire corporate research divisions couldn't achieve. And Antonio? Antonio has spent 12 years in a comfortable prison of his own making, trapped by guilt he wouldn't acknowledge, profiting from treachery he couldn't undo. He thinks about Catherine, his sister-in-law, who had always been kind to him, who had played violin at his wedding, who had walked into the ocean rather than face another day in exile. That death is on his hands too, isn't it? Along with Miranda's stolen childhood, Prospero's lost career, all the ripples of consequence spreading out from that one act of betrayal. "I'm sorry," he whispers to the empty room. "I'm so sorry, but sorry doesn't resurrect the dead. Sorry doesn't restore lost years. Sorry is just a word, and words are cheap." Outside, the storm begins to weaken. Prospero's calculations were precise 6 hours of tempest, then a gradual dissipation as the energy he'd pumped into the system disperses naturally. By morning, the sky will be clear, the ocean calm, as if nothing had happened. As if a yacht hadn't been destroyed and 5 men hadn't been plucked from death and deposited on an island that doesn't officially exist. In the control room, Prospero monitors the atmospheric data, watching his creation wind down exactly as predicted. Ariel stands nearby, arms crossed, expression troubled. "What happens now?" Ariel asks. "Now," Prospero says, "we see if men are capable of genuine remorse, or if power has calcified their consciences beyond redemption." He removes his glasses, cleaning them absently. "Now we discover whether justice and revenge are truly different things, or just different words for the same human need. And if they show remorse, if they apologize, admit their guilt, what then?" Prospero replaces his glasses and turns to face his assistant. "Then I suppose we'll discover whether I'm capable of forgiveness, or whether 12 years of exile has calcified my conscience beyond redemption as well." He looks at the monitors showing each man in his room, each processing his situation in his own way. Tomorrow the real experiment begins. Morning arrives with the kind of crystalline clarity that only follows a great storm. The sky is impossibly blue, scrubbed clean by wind and rain. The ocean stretches to the horizon in shades of turquoise and sapphire, its surface now gentle, innocent, giving no indication that yesterday it was a killing field. Seabirds wheel and cry in the salt air. The jungle steams in the early sunlight, water evaporating from millions of leaves, invisible wisps of mist. It is, objectively, a beautiful day. The men are awakened at precisely 700 hours when their lights turn on automatically and the deadbolts on their doors slide open with synchronized clicks. They emerge cautiously into the corridor, finding Ariel waiting with the patient posture of a guide who knows their tour group has no choice but to follow. "Breakfast is ready," Ariel announces. "This way, please." They're led to the common area, where the long table has been set with plates, utensils, and serving dishes containing scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and coffee. It's simple fare, but after yesterday's ordeal, it might as well be a feast. The men sit, eyeing each other, eyeing Ariel, eyeing the food with suspicion. "It's not poisoned," Ariel says with faint amusement. "If Dr. Dante wanted you dead, you'd be dead. Eat." Ferdinand is the first to give in to hunger, loading his plate. The others follow suit, pride giving way to basic biological need. For several minutes, the only sounds are of eating and the clink of utensils on ceramic. Through the windows, the island presents itself in full daylight: volcanic peaks, dense jungle, and in the distance, visible through a gap in the trees, the black sand beach where they washed ashore. Wreckage from the Monarch is scattered along the tide line. Pieces of the yacht that represented wealth and power now reduced to debris. The door opens and Prospero enters, Miranda following behind him. Both are dressed simply, he in his standard work clothes, she in a cotton dress the color of sea foam. They carry themselves with the ease of people on home territory, while the survivors shift uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how disheveled they look in the borrowed clothing, unshaven, exhausted. "Good morning, gentlemen," Prospero says, pouring himself coffee from the percolator. "I trust you slept adequately." "Let's dispense with the pleasantries," Victor says, setting down his fork. "You've made your point. You survived, you built all this, you proved us wrong about your capabilities. Fine. You want an apology? You have it. I apologize for my role in what happened 12 years ago. Now arrange for our transportation back to the mainland." Prospero laughs a genuine sound of amusement. "An apology? How generous. Tell me, Victor, do you actually feel remorse, or are you simply saying what you think will secure your release?" "Does it matter?" Victor replies. "You want acknowledgement of wrongdoing. I'm giving it to you." "It matters immensely," Prospero says. He sits at the head of the table, Miranda taking the seat beside him. "Because what happens next depends entirely on whether you gentlemen are capable of genuine self-examination, or whether you're simply performing contrition as another business strategy." "What do you want from us?" Sebastian asks. Without his glasses, his eyes have a vulnerable, naked quality. "Public confession? Financial compensation? What's the price of our freedom?" "I want you to understand," Prospero says simply. "I want you to truly comprehend what you did, what you took, what you destroyed. And I want you to face a choice similar to the one I faced 12 years ago." He stands and walks to the windows, looking out at his island kingdom. "When you took my research, my reputation, my career, when you left me with nothing, but a traumatized wife and a frightened child. I had a choice. I could give up, admit defeat, disappear into obscurity, or I could rebuild. Do you know how difficult it is to construct a facility like this with no funding, no institutional support, no access to normal supply chains? He turns back to face them. Every piece of equipment you see was acquired through creativity and determination, salvaged from shipwrecks, purchased through intermediaries, built by hand from scrap materials. It took me 3 years just to establish reliable power generation, 5 years to perfect the ionization array, 8 years to achieve the level of precision you witnessed yesterday. Ferdinand leans forward, unable to help himself. The frequency modulation. How did you solve the interference problem? We could never get clean signals at that power level. We? Prospero's eyes narrow. You mean using my research? My equations? My breakthrough that you claimed as your own? Ferdinand has the grace to look embarrassed. I meant no disrespect. I'm genuinely curious about the technical achievement. Of course you are, Prospero says, because to you, this is all abstract, interesting puzzles to solve. You don't see people, Ferdinand. You don't see consequences. You see data points and opportunities for advancement. It's what made you perfect for Alonso Industries, a brilliant mind unencumbered by conscience. That's not fair, Ferdinand protests. Isn't it? Miranda speaks for the first time, her voice quiet but clear. You spent 2 years running a research division built entirely on my father's stolen work. Did you ever wonder what happened to him? Did you ever ask where the original research came from? Who created it? What became of them? Ferdinand opens his mouth, then closes it. The honest answer is no. He hadn't wondered. He'd been too excited by the challenge, too focused on his own career trajectory. This is pointless, Victor says. You want us to grovel? To perform some ritual of self-flagellation? We're not children, Prospero. We're businessmen who made business decisions. You're criminals who faced no consequences, Prospero corrects. And now, finally, you will. He nods to Ariel, who produces a folder from a side table and places it in front of Victor. Open it. Victor does, finding documents inside photographs, actually. The first shows a young Prospero at Columbia, surrounded by students, clearly in the middle of an engaging lecture. He looks happy, animated, alive with the joy of teaching. The next photo shows him with Catherine and young Miranda in what must be their Brooklyn apartment of family, intact, full of future potential. Then the photos change. Prospero haggard, leaving a courthouse. Catherine with hollow eyes, her violin case clutched like a life preserver. Miranda, at 7 years old, confused and frightened. Newspaper headlines. Physicist accused of research fraud. Columbia professor loses tenure. Dante investigation expands. These are the consequences of your business decisions, Prospero says quietly. A career destroyed, a marriage shattered, a child's innocence stolen. And finally, he places one more photo on the table. It shows a beach, this beach, and searchers finding a body, Catherine's body. Antonio makes a sound something between a gasp and a sob. His hand reaches toward the photograph, but doesn't quite touch it, as if the image might burn him. Catherine, he whispers. Oh God, Catherine. She lasted 3 months on this island, Prospero says, his voice tight with controlled emotion. 3 months of trying to adapt, trying to be strong for Miranda, trying to convince herself that exile was survivable. But the isolation, the loss of everything familiar, The knowledge that her husband had been destroyed by his own brother. It broke something in her. One morning she told me she was going for a walk on the beach. I found her dress folded neatly on the sand. The ocean had taken her by the time I reached the water. Miranda's face is composed, but her hands grip the edge of the table hard enough that her knuckles have gone white. She's heard this story before, lived through its aftermath, but the telling still carries power. "I'm sorry," Antonio says, and this time the words sound genuine, torn from somewhere deep. "Prospero, I am so sorry. I never wanted, I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," Prospero interrupts. "None of you did. It was easier to take what you wanted and not think about the human cost. Easier to tell yourselves it was just business, just the way the world works, just the price of progress." Sebastian has gone pale. "We should have faced criminal charges," he says quietly. "What we did, corporate espionage, fraud, conspiracy. We should have gone to prison." "Yes," Prospero agrees. "You should have. But you had expensive lawyers and government connections and friends in high places. So instead I lost everything, and you gained everything, and the universe remained unbalanced. Until now." Victor pushes the photos away. "So this is revenge. You're going to kill us then? That's your plan?" "No," Prospero says. "I told you death would be too simple. I'm going to offer you what you never offered me, a choice." He walks to a control panel on the wall and presses a button. A section of wall slides away, revealing a large monitor. The screen flickers to life, showing what appears to be a pre-recorded video. A younger Prospero appears, clearly filmed years ago in this very facility. He sits at a desk, looking directly into the camera. "My name is Dr. Prospero Dante," the recorded Prospero begins. "For the past 10 years I have been conducting atmospheric research on an undisclosed island in the Caribbean. This facility was built without permits, without government oversight, and without regard for international maritime law. The storm that destroyed the yacht Monarch on October 15th, 1962, was not a natural phenomenon. It was created deliberately using experimental weather modification technology. I accept full responsibility for this action." The video Prospero pauses, then continues. "The men who survived that storm, Victor Alonso, Antonio Dante, Sebastian Crane, Ferdinand Stone, and the crew of the Monarch, are being held here against their will. This constitutes kidnapping, false imprisonment, and conspiracy. The following documents detail the complete technical specifications of my weather control system, including its potential applications as a weapon. I am providing this information freely to whatever authorities ultimately discover this recording." The screen goes dark. The present-day Prospero turns back to his captives. "That recording, along with complete documentation of everything I've built here, is currently in a sealed package aboard a small boat anchored in a cove on the far side of the island. The boat has enough fuel to reach Puerto Rico. It also has a radio, emergency supplies, and navigational charts." He lets that information settle before continuing. "Here's your choice, gentlemen. You can take that boat, return to civilization, turn over that recording to the authorities. I will face arrest, prosecution, almost certainly imprisonment. My work here will be seized and destroyed. Miranda will lose her father just as she lost her mother. But you will be free, and you will be vindicated. The dangerous madman Prospero Dante will finally face justice." "Or?" Victor asks, because there's clearly an alternative. "Or," Prospero says, "you can choose to stay for 30 days. Work with me, learn what I've accomplished, understand the true potential of this technology. At the end of that time, I will give you access to all my research, not to steal this time, but as a legitimate collaboration, your names alongside mine on the patents. Your company's benefiting from technology that actually works, wealth and recognition beyond what you currently possess. In exchange for what? Sebastian asks suspiciously. In exchange for acknowledging publicly what you did 12 years ago. A press conference where you admit to corporate espionage and fraud, where you explain how you destroyed my career and drove my wife to suicide. You'll face legal consequences, perhaps not prison, given your connections, but civil suits, certainly. Professional embarrassment, social stigma. Your reputations will be damaged the way mine was. Ferdinand sees the elegance of it immediately. You're offering us the same choice you faced. Lose everything we've built, or adapt and rebuild in a new context. Precisely, Prospero says. Except I'm giving you advantages I never had each other for support. The promise of future reward, and the knowledge that the exile is temporary. 30 days instead of 12 years. Antonio looks at his brother with desperate hope. And after? After the 30 days and the press conference. What then? Then you're free to go, Prospero says. No more revenge, no more punishment. We move forward as colleagues, or at minimum, as people who have settled their debts. This is insane, Victor says. You're asking us to commit professional suicide. I'm asking you to tell the truth, Prospero corrects. Something you've avoided for 12 years. And in return, I'm offering you technology that will make your companies billions. Weather prediction with unprecedented accuracy. Agricultural applications that could end droughts, save crops, transform farming. Perhaps even hurricane mitigation. Imagine being able to weaken storms before they make landfall. Ferdinand's eyes light up. Despite everything, the scientist in him responds to the possibilities. You could really do that? Control hurricanes? With refinement, yes, Prospero says. But not alone. This work is too important for one man, too complex for isolation. It needs collaboration, resources, institutional support. The things I would have had if you hadn't taken them from me. Silence falls over the room as each man processes the choice laid before them. It's Miranda who breaks it, her voice carrying an unexpected edge. Why are you offering them anything, Father? They deserve nothing but exposure and punishment. Let them take the boat, turn themselves in along with you, and face justice together. Prospero looks at his daughter with something like sadness. Because revenge that destroys the avenger is hollow, Miranda. If I go to prison, what happens to you? You've never lived in civilization. You'd be alone, unprepared, vulnerable. I can't do that to you. So you'd rather compromise with these men? Partner with them? Her voice rises, passionate. They killed Mother. Maybe not directly, but their actions led to her death. How can you even consider? Because I'm tired, Prospero says, and suddenly he looks every one of his 48 years. I'm tired of exile. Tired of isolation. Tired of nursing hatred like a fire that warms nothing. 12 years I've spent on this island, and what have I accomplished? Yes, I perfected my research. Yes, I proved I was right. But at what cost? You've had no life, Miranda. No friends, no experiences, no chance to become who you might have been. That's on me as much as it's on them. He turns back to the men. I'm offering this not out of forgiveness. I'm not sure I'm capable of that. I'm offering it because continuing this cycle of destruction serves no one. If we can transform something poisonous into something productive, something that might actually benefit the world rather than simply satisfying my need for vindication, then perhaps some meaning can be salvaged from all this loss. Victor stands, pacing to the window. His mind works through angles, calculations, risk assessments. The press conference, how detailed would these confessions need to be? Completely detailed, Prospero says firmly. Names, dates, specific actions. How you approached Antonio, how you stole the research, how you orchestrated my professional destruction. Everything. That would expose us to criminal liability, Sebastian points out. Statute of limitations might have expired on some charges, but not all. We could face prosecution. Yes, Prospero agrees. You could. Just as I'm currently facing potential prosecution for what I did yesterday. We'd all be taking risks. The difference is you'd be taking them together, with resources and support. I took mine alone. Antonio hasn't looked away from the photograph of Catherine. I'll do it, he says suddenly. Whatever you want, brother. The 30 days, the confession, all of it. I'll do it. Don't be a fool, Victor snaps. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. Maybe, Antonio replies. Or maybe I'm finally letting emotion clear it. I've spent 12 years pretending I didn't betray my own brother, pretending the money and position were worth it. They weren't. They never were. Every promotion, every success, it's all been ashes because I knew what it cost. He finally looks at Prospero. I can't undo what happened to Catherine. I can't give Miranda back her childhood, but I can finally tell the truth. And I can help you if you'll let me. Ferdinand speaks up, surprising himself. The research, if we stayed, if we worked with you, you'd teach us everything? The complete methodology? Everything, Prospero confirms. No secrets, no withheld data. Real collaboration. Then I'm in, Ferdinand says. Not because I feel I owe you, though clearly I do, but because this work is too important to waste on ego and revenge. If there's a chance to make it mean something, to actually use it for good, then yes. I'll stay. Sebastian looks between them, his face troubled. You're both insane. He held us prisoner. He could have killed us. And you want to reward that with cooperation? He also pulled us from the ocean when he could have let us drown, Ferdinand points out. He gave us food, shelter, and a choice. That's more mercy than we showed him. Mercy? Sebastian's voice rises. This is manipulation. He's leveraging our guilt. We should feel guilty, Antonio interrupts. We did something terrible. The fact that we got away with it doesn't make it right. Maybe this is our chance to finally make something right. Victor has been silent, calculating. Finally he speaks. If I agree to this, and I'm not saying I am, what guarantees do we have? How do we know you won't simply expose us anyway after we've confessed? How do we know the research you're offering is genuine and not just bait? You don't, Prospero says simply. You have only my word, which I realize means little given our history. But consider this. If I simply wanted to destroy you, you'd already be destroyed. I have recordings, evidence, witnesses. I could send that boat to Puerto Rico with documentation of everything you've done and let the legal system handle it. Instead, I'm offering partnership. Not friendship. I don't think we'll ever achieve that, but professional. Collaboration built on acknowledged truth rather than hidden lies. Miranda stands abruptly. I need air, she says, and walks out before anyone can respond. Prospero watches her go, conflict clear on his face. Then he addresses the men again. You have until sunset to decide. The boat will be provisioned and ready. Choose freedom and exposure, or choose 30 days and collaboration. Either way, this ends today, this stalemate, this frozen moment of unresolved history. We move forward one way or another. He follows his daughter out, leaving the 5 men alone with their choice. For a long moment, no one speaks. Then Victor laughs a bitter, exhausted sound. Well, gentlemen, it seems we're about to discover what we're really made of. How much is our pride worth? Our reputations, our comfortable lives? I already know what I'm choosing, Antonio says. I'm staying. I owe him at least that much. I'm staying too, Ferdinand adds. For the research, yes, but also, he pauses, searching for honesty. Also because I want to prove I'm more than just an opportunist, that I'm capable of doing something meaningful. Sebastian removes his broken glasses, holding them uselessly. I need to think, he says. This decision, it changes everything. Then think carefully, Victor says. Because he's right about one thing. Either way, after today, nothing will ever be the same. Outside, Miranda stands at the edge of the compound, looking out at the ocean that took her mother. Prospero joins her, saying nothing, just standing beside his daughter in the morning light. Is this really what you want, Father? She asks finally. Partnership with the men who destroyed us? I don't know, he admits. But I know that more destruction isn't the answer. We've been prisoners of the past for 12 years, Miranda. Maybe it's time to find a different path forward. She leans against him, and he puts his arm around her shoulders, and together they wait to see what choice broken men will make when finally offered redemption. The afternoon sun climbs toward its zenith, turning the Korean into a sheet of hammered gold. The storm's destruction is more visible, now palm fronds scattered like giants' fingers across the compound, branches torn from trees, equipment on the roof that needs realigning. But the facility itself stands intact, testament to Prospero's meticulous engineering. He and Ariel work together on the transmission tower, tightening bolts loosened by the wind, their movements practiced and efficient. From this height, the entire island spreads below them, jungle canopy, black beaches, and in a protected cove on the western shore, a small motor launch bobbing at anchor. The escape route, the choice made manifest. In the common area, the 5 men sit around the table in various postures of contemplation. A clock on the wall ticks steadily toward the deadline Prospero set. Sunset is 6 hours away. 6 hours to choose between exposure and collaboration, between familiar ruin and uncertain redemption. I've made my decision, Victor announces. He stands, commanding attention through decades of practiced authority. I'm taking the boat. Not because I'm unwilling to face consequences, though, let's be honest, that's part of it, but because I don't trust this situation. Prospero is offering collaboration now, but what happens after 30 days, after we've confessed publicly? He'll have everything he wants, and we'll have nothing. We'll be professionally destroyed with no guarantee he'll follow through on his promises. So you choose exposure, Sebastian says. You'll turn over that recording, confirm that Prospero kidnapped us, send him to prison. I'll turn over the recording, Victor confirms. But I'll also finally tell the truth about what we did 12 years ago. Not because Prospero is forcing me, but on my own terms and my own way. Yes, there will be consequences. Legal battles, reputation damage, probably the end of Alonso Industries as I know it. But at least I'll control the narrative. At least I won't be Prospero's puppet dancing through his revenge fantasy. Antonio shakes his head slowly. You're still trying to maintain control, Victor. Still trying to manage the situation. Can't you see that's what got us here in the first place? That arrogance, that certainty that we could manipulate outcomes without consequences? I'm being practical, Victor retorts. Something you clearly have no talent for, Antonio. You're so consumed with guilt that you'd give Prospero anything he asks. That's not nobility, that's weakness. Maybe, Antonio allows. Or maybe it's the first strong thing I've done in 12 years. I'm staying, Victor. I'm working with my brother, confessing what we did and accepting whatever comes after. If that makes me weak in your eyes, so be it. Ferdinand has been silent, staring at his hands. Now he speaks, his voice thoughtful. I keep thinking about my father. He built a small engineering firm from nothing honest work, quality products, satisfied clients. He died when I was 20, and I remember thinking his life seemed so small, so limited. I wanted more. When Alonso Industries recruited me, offered me the chance to run a research division at 26, it felt like vindication. Like proof I was destined for bigger things than my father's modest success. He looks up, meeting their eyes. But my father never stole from anyone. Never destroyed someone's life to advance his own. His accomplishments were small, but they were his. What have I accomplished? I've built nothing. I've only taken what Prospero created and tried to make it work. Every paper I've published, every presentation I've given, it's all been standing on another man's stolen shoulders. So you're staying too, Victor says, not quite a question. I'm staying, Ferdinand confirms. Not to save myself, I don't think I deserve saving. But because if there's any chance this technology can actually help people, can be more than just a military contract or corporate profit center, then I want to be part of that. I want to do one thing in my career that's actually mine, actually meaningful. Victor's expression hardens. Fine. Indulge your guilt, both of you, Sebastian? You're the only rational one left. Tell me you're not buying into this redemption theater. Sebastian sits hunched over, looking older than his 48 years. I've spent my career building legal shields, protecting clients from consequences, finding loopholes, exploiting technicalities, making sure powerful people never face accountability. I was good at it, brilliant actually. Made partner at 35. My name on the door. 6-figure salary. Everything I thought I wanted. He pauses, gathering his thoughts. But there's something about nearly drowning that clarifies things. In those moments in the water, when I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, certain I was going to die, I didn't think about my cases, my victories in court, my professional reputation. I thought about my wife, my daughter, the ways I've been absent from their lives, always working, always crafting defenses for other people, while having no defense against my own hollowness. That's very poetic, Victor says dryly, but it doesn't answer the question. I'm staying, Sebastian says. I'm tired of defending the indefensible. Tired of being the man who makes it possible for bad people to avoid consequences. Maybe for once I can be part of something that creates rather than protects. Victor stares at them, these men who were his allies, his tools, his subordinates, in the machinery of corporate ambition. Now they're choosing another path, and he finds himself suddenly, unexpectedly alone. So that's it, he says. You're all staying. You're all going to play Prospero's game, dance to his tune, humiliate yourselves publicly in exchange for the promise of collaboration that may never materialize. Yes, Antonio says simply. Victor walks to the window, his back to them. For a long moment he's silent, and when he finally speaks, his voice has lost its commanding edge. I had a daughter once, did you know that? Before I built the company, before the Pentagon contracts. She died when she was 6, leukemia. We had the best doctors, the best hospitals, but it didn't matter. She died anyway. The revelation hangs in the air. The other men exchange glances, this glimpse of Victor's humanity unexpected and disarming. I threw myself into work after that, Victor continues, still facing away. Building the company, acquiring patents, expanding operations. I told myself I was creating something meaningful, something that would outlast me. But really I was just running from grief. And somewhere in that running, I lost whatever moral compass I might have had. Prospero's research represented billions in potential contracts. I saw it as an asset to acquire, nothing more. I didn't see the man behind it, the family. I didn't want to see them. He turns back to face them. But I see them now. I see what we did. And unlike you gentlemen, I don't believe I can be redeemed. Some actions are too far beyond the pale. Some debts can't be repaid. That's not true, Antonio says. Brother, if Prospero can offer me redemption after what I did, I'm not your brother, Antonio, Victor interrupts. And Prospero is offering you redemption because you share blood, because somewhere under the betrayal there's still family. He's offering Ferdinand redemption because of youth, because brilliant young men deserve second chances. He's offering Sebastian redemption because lawyers are just tools, morally neutral, doing what they're paid to do. But me, I'm the architect. I'm the one who saw a vulnerable man and decided to destroy him for profit. That's not forgivable. So you'll take the boat, Ferdinand says. Expose everything, send Prospero to prison, and go down yourself in the process. Maybe that's the only honorable choice left to me, Victor replies. Accept consequences without asking for mercy I don't deserve. Let justice be actual justice rather than this negotiated settlement. The door opens and Miranda enters, carrying a tray with fresh coffee. She sets it on the table, then looks at the men with careful assessment. I've been listening outside, she admits. I wanted to hear what you'd decide when my father wasn't here to influence you. And what did you hear? Victor asks. I heard men struggling to be better than they've been, Miranda says. Even you, Mr. Alonso, though you're trying to disguise growth as resignation. She pours coffee with practiced grace. My father thinks I want him to punish you. He thinks I'm consumed with anger over what you did to our family. He's wrong. She sits, cradling her own cup. I was angry for years, I was angry. But anger is exhausting when it's all you have. I've spent my entire adolescence on this island watching my father nurture his rage like a delicate flower, feeding it, protecting it, building everything around it. The facility, the research, the long-term planning for this confrontation. It's all been impressive, yes, brilliant, even, but also profoundly sad. Sad? Sebastian echoes. He's wasted 12 years, Miranda says simply. 12 years that could have been spent doing meaningful work, publishing research, teaching, contributing to science. Instead, he's been here, isolated, focused entirely on a revenge he wasn't even sure he wanted to complete. And I've been complicit in that waste. I've helped him, supported him, because I thought it was what loyalty required. She looks at each of them in turn. But yesterday, watching you nearly drown, watching my father orchestrate that storm with such precision, I realized something. Revenge isn't justice. It's just pain passed from one person to another, multiplying rather than resolving. If you all choose to leave, if you expose him and he goes to prison, then he wins nothing. The technology remains useless, locked away as evidence. The years of work mean nothing. The isolation was for nothing. But if we stay, Antonio asks gently, if you stay, if you work together, if something good actually comes from all this suffering, then maybe it means something. Maybe my mother's death wasn't entirely pointless. Maybe our exile led somewhere other than just more emptiness. Victor sits heavily. You're very wise for 19, Miss Dante. I've had no distractions from thinking, she says with a slight smile. No television, no radio shows, no social obligations. Just books, conversation, and a lot of time to observe human nature through my father's struggles. What do you think we should do? Ferdinand asks. I think you should stop trying to calculate the choice that minimizes damage to yourselves and instead choose what might actually create something valuable. My father is offering collaboration, not because he's forgiven you, I don't think he has, but because he's desperate to make his work matter, to prove his life here wasn't wasted. You can give him that, or you can give him martyrdom. Which do you think serves the world better? Before anyone can answer, Prospero enters with Ariel behind him. He looks tired, grease-stained from the repair work, but his eyes are alert, scanning the room, reading the dynamics. Gentlemen, he says, it's 4 hours to sunset. Have you reached your decisions? Victor stands first. I have. And before I announce it, I want to say something. He faces Prospero directly. I can't apologize adequately for what I did. Words are insufficient. But I can tell you that building Alonso Industries on your stolen research has been hollow. Every success felt borrowed, unearned. I've been wealthy and miserable, powerful and empty. That's not your problem. That's my karma. But you should know that destroying you didn't bring me peace. It brought nothing but the knowledge that I'm capable of great cruelty for small reasons. He takes a breath. I'll stay. I'll work with you for 30 days. I'll confess publicly what we did, and I'll accept whatever legal and professional consequences follow. Not because I believe I deserve redemption, but because your daughter is right, something good should come from all this pain. If this technology can help people, then it's too important for my pride. Prospero's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. And the others? We're staying, Antonio says, and Ferdinand and Sebastian nod agreement. Prospero looks at each man in turn, searching for deception, for performance. He finds only exhaustion, resignation, and perhaps the first fragile shoots of genuine remorse. Very well, he says finally, then we have work to do. Real work. Tomorrow we begin experiments. You'll learn the systems, contribute your own expertise, help refine what I've built. It won't be easy. I'm a demanding teacher, and I have 12 years of anger to work through. But if you're sincere, if you're truly committed to this, then perhaps we can create something neither of us could build alone. He extends his hand to Victor first. Partners, then. Not friends, but partners. Victor stares at the offered hand, this gesture of impossible forgiveness. Then he clasps it firmly. Partners. 30 days pass like a fever dream, intense, exhausting, transformative. The compound becomes a true laboratory, filled with the energy of collaboration rather than the cold precision of solitary obsession. Prospero proves to be as demanding as he promised, pushing the men through 18-hour days of theoretical work and practical application. They learn the mathematics of atmospheric ionization, the delicate balance of energy input and natural systems, the careful calibration required to nudge weather patterns rather than simply creating chaos. Ferdinand discovers that working with complete data rather than stolen fragments is entirely different. Equations that never quite balanced now resolve elegantly. Systems that failed in controlled tests suddenly function as designed. He fills notebook after notebook with observations, insights, refinements. For the first time in his career, he's building rather than merely replicating, and the difference is intoxicating. Sebastian, surprisingly, becomes the group's documentarian. His legal mind proves valuable for organizing research, creating systematic records, ensuring that every experiment is properly logged and analyzed. He approaches science with the same methodical precision he once applied to contracts, but now in service of discovery rather than obfuscation. Antonio works primarily on engineering challenges, improving power efficiency, redesigning transmission arrays, solving the practical problems of making laboratory success scale to real-world application. He and Prospero work side by side, and though their conversations remain mostly technical, there's a gradual thawing. Not forgiveness exactly, but the beginning of something that might, eventually, become reconciliation. Victor surprises everyone, including himself. His corporate experience proves valuable for thinking about implementation, not for profit, but for practical deployment. How could this technology be made accessible to agricultural communities? What partnerships with meteorological organizations would be necessary? How could safeguards be built in to prevent military weaponization? He brings strategic thinking divorced from pure self-interest, perhaps for the first time in decades. And through it all, Miranda watches. She serves as assistant, taking measurements, recording data, maintaining equipment. But more importantly, she watches these men transform. Watches guilt become effort, shame become purpose, brokenness become the foundation for something new. She watches her father slowly release the rage he's carried like a second skeleton, his movements becoming lighter, his rare smiles more genuine. Ariel observes, too, from a different perspective. They see how genuine collaboration changes the compound's atmosphere, making it feel less like a prison and more like what it should have always been, a place of discovery. For the first time in 8 years, Ariel begins to believe that freedom might actually come, that Prospero's promises might be kept. On the 28th day, they achieve something extraordinary. Working together, they successfully generate a small, controlled rain system over a specific quadrant of the island precisely targeted, carefully modulated exactly as predicted by their combined calculations. It's a small demonstration, nothing like the Tempest that brought the men here, but it represents something more important. Proof that the technology can be used constructively, that weather modification need not be a weapon, but could be a tool for good. They stand together on the observation deck, watching their creation. Rain falls in a defined area, watering specific sections of jungle while leaving surrounding areas dry. It's precision that shouldn't be possible, control that defies conventional meteorology. Remarkable, Ferdinand breathes. This could revolutionize agriculture in drought-prone regions. Imagine being able to deliver water exactly where and when it's needed. Or hurricane modification, Sebastian adds, reducing a Category 5 to a Category 2 before it makes landfall. The lives that could be saved. The question isn't what's possible, Prospero says quietly. It's what's responsible. This technology is powerful enough to cause tremendous good or tremendous harm. We need to ensure it's only used for the former. That's why the patents need multiple names, Victor says. Why no single entity can control it. Collaboration is a safeguard against abuse. Antonio looks at his brother. In 2 days we face the press. Are you ready for that? Prospero removes his glasses, cleaning them, that old habit. I don't know, I've spent 12 years preparing for revenge. I'm less prepared for partnership, for moving forward rather than settling scores, but yes, I'm ready. Or ready enough. The press conference is planned for Miami. Victor has arranged for a boat, too. Pick them up a legitimate vessel this time with reporters aboard to document everything. They'll sail together to the mainland, these former enemies, and jointly announce both their collaboration and their crimes. It will be sensational, controversial, probably legally complicated, but it will be the truth. What will you do? Miranda asks her father. After the conference, after the legal proceedings, whatever they are, what then? Return here, Prospero says. This is still home, but not as a prison anymore, as a research station. With partners, assistants, graduate students, perhaps. A place that contributes rather than hides. And me? Miranda asks. What if I want something different? Prospero looks at his daughter, really looks at her, perhaps for the first time seeing not the child he's been protecting, but the woman she's become. Then you choose differently. You go to the mainland, attend university, build whatever life you want. I've kept you here too long, let my exile become yours. That was wrong of me. Miranda's eyes glisten. I don't regret our time here, Father, but you're right. I'm ready to see the world. To live in it, not just read about it. Then that's what you'll do, Prospero says. And I'll support that choice however I can. On the 30th day, they stand on the beach as a cabin cruiser approaches. Legitimate and expected this time rather than driven by manufactured storm. Reporters crowd the deck with cameras and notebooks. This is the moment that will change everything for Prospero, for the men who betrayed him, for the technology they've refined together. Last chance to reconsider, Victor says, but there's no real suggestion in it. They've all committed. No reconsideration, Prospero replies. We move forward. Whatever comes, we face it together. The boat arrives, reporters disembark, cameras flash. The questions begin immediately, but Victor raises his hand for silence. Gentlemen, ladies, he says, we have a statement to make. 12 years ago, Alonso Industries engaged in corporate espionage, stealing research from Dr. Prospero Dante and systematically destroying his career. I orchestrated this action with the assistance of these men. We've gathered you here today to confess these crimes publicly and to announce our intention to make restitution through collaboration and through legal accountability. The reporters explode with questions, but Victor continues. Dr. Dante will explain the technology we've developed. We will jointly announce our partnership and our commitment to ensuring this technology serves humanitarian purposes, and we will submit ourselves to whatever legal consequences our past actions warrant. Prospero steps forward. My name is Dr. Prospero Dante. For the past 12 years I have been conducting atmospheric research in isolation. The work these men stole was incomplete. Together, we have now perfected it. What you're about to learn will change our understanding of weather modification and its potential applications. He begins to explain, and the reporters listen with growing astonishment. Behind him, Miranda stands beside Ariel, both of them watching this strange performance, this public confession that is also a triumph. this admission of guilt that is also a declaration of achievement. "Do you think it will work?" Ariel asks quietly. "This partnership, this attempt at redemption? I don't know," Miranda admits. "But for the first time in 12 years, my father looks like he's living, rather than just surviving. That has to count for something." As Prospero speaks, gesturing toward diagrams, explaining equations, fielding questions with the natural ease of a born teacher, the sun begins its descent toward the horizon. The same horizon over which the tempest appeared 30 days ago, bringing destruction and, unexpectedly, the possibility of renewal. The storm has passed. The reckoning is complete. What comes next is uncertain legal battles, public scrutiny, the difficult work of transforming revenge into collaboration. But for the first time in 12 years, the future holds possibilities beyond pain. Prospero catches Miranda's eye across the beach and smiles a real smile, unguarded and genuine. She smiles back, and in that moment, something that was broken begins, finally, to heal. The tempest brought them all to this island, but its forgiveness tentative, incomplete, but real, that will carry them away from it and into whatever comes next.